silent companion. Welcome, thrill seekers. Tonight's tale creeps out of the shadows, a story of a little doll and the big horrors it carries. Let's peek behind the curtain into a story I like to call The Silent Companion. Deep in the Appalachian Mountains, a young couple, Mara and Daniel, purchased an old Victorian home at an auction. The house, charming yet decaying, was a fixer-upper, but Mara, an aspiring interior designer, saw potential. While exploring the attic on their first night, Mara stumbled upon a small wooden chest. Inside was an exquisite doll, its face carved from ivory, hair made of golden threads, and eyes painted a piercing green. It wore a faded crimson gown trimmed with lace. Tucked under its arm was a note that read, "For Eloise, take care of her, and she'll take care of you." Mara, captivated by its craftsmanship, decided to display the doll in their living room. Daniel, less enchanted, shrugged it off as just another piece of old junk. But Eloise was far from ordinary. The first incident happened a week later. Daniel came downstairs early one morning to find a single teacup shattered on the dining room table, the fragments arranged in a perfect circle. Mara swore she hadn't touched the china. Then came the laughter. At first, faint and sporadic, just a childlike giggle echoing through the halls late at night. Mara blamed the wind, Daniel blamed Mara's overactive imagination. But soon, the laughter became unmistakable. One evening, as they prepared dinner, they both heard it, a soft, high-pitched giggle coming from the living room. Daniel stormed in, expecting to find a stray animal or, God forbid, a neighbor's kid. But there was nothing. Nothing except Eloise, sitting on her shelf, her head now tilted slightly to the side. Things escalated quickly. Doors slammed shut on their own. Lights flickered. Objects moved. One morning, Daniel found muddy footprints trailing from the living room to the kitchen, tiny footprints, far too small for either of them. Enough, Daniel snapped. He grabbed the doll and stuffed her into the trash bin outside. But the next morning, Eloise was back on her shelf, her green eyes gleaming. Desperation drove Mara to research the doll's origins. She discovered that Eloise had belonged to a wealthy girl who lived in their home over a century ago. The girl, also named Eloise, died tragically at just 8 years old, under mysterious circumstances. Local legends claimed the doll was cursed, harboring the vengeful spirit of the child. Terrified, Mara begged Daniel to sell the doll or destroy it. But Daniel, ever the skeptic, refused to give in to what he called superstitious nonsense. That night, Daniel woke to the feeling of tiny fingers gripping his ankle. He sat up, heart racing, but saw nothing. Just as he began to relax, he heard Mara's scream from the hallway. Rushing to her, Daniel found her frozen in the dark, staring at the end of the corridor. There stood Eloise, no longer sitting idly on her shelf but standing upright, her head cocked and a menacing grin etched on her carved face. The couple decided to flee the house that very night. They packed quickly, leaving everything, including Eloise, behind. But as they drove down the winding mountain road, their car sputtered and died. Mara, trembling, turned to Daniel. "Do you hear that?" she whispered. From the back seat came a soft, familiar giggle. Daniel turned, and there she was, Eloise, sitting perfectly still, her green eyes glinting in the moonlight. The next morning, the car was found abandoned on the roadside. Mara and Daniel were never seen again. But local children who dared to wander too close to the old Victorian house claimed to see a doll in the attic window, smiling down at them. Moral of the story? Sometimes, the past doesn't stay silent, especially when it has a voice of its own.